Vanished in Smokies. The Disappearance. The Great Smoky Mountains, a sprawling wilderness straddling Tennessee and North Carolina, had always been a place of mystery and allure, where dense forests whispered secrets and fog clung to the peaks like a ghostly shroud. On a crisp October morning in 2020, Daniel Harper, a 38-year-old widower and seasoned hiker, set out on a weekend adventure with his 9-year-old daughter, Lily, a bright-eyed girl with a passion for sketching the world around her. They were no strangers to the Smokies. Daniel had grown up exploring its trails, and Lily, raised on stories of her father's adventures, had inherited his love for the wild. Their plan was simple: a 2-day hike along the Appalachian Trail to Gregory Bald, a scenic spot known for its panoramic views and vibrant wildflowers. Daniel packed their gear meticulously: tent, sleeping bags, a first aid kit, and Lily's beloved sketchbook, while Lily chattered excitedly about drawing the sunset from the Bald. They parked their weathered Jeep at the trailhead near Cades Cove, waved to a passing ranger, and vanished into the forest, their laughter echoing briefly before the trees swallowed the sound. By evening, when they failed to check in at the designated campsite, a nagging worry began to settle over the park rangers. Daniel was known for his preparedness, a man who carried a satellite phone and left nothing to chance, yet no signal came from his device. The rangers initiated a search that night, combing the trail under the glow of headlamps, calling out for Daniel and Lily, but the mountains offered no answers. The next morning, a full-scale search operation launched, involving helicopters, K-9 units, and dozens of volunteers scouring the rugged terrain. Days turned into weeks, and the search grew desperate. They found Daniel's Jeep untouched at the trailhead, but no trace of the pair, no footprints, no dropped gear, no sign of struggle. The Smokies, with their 500,000 acres of dense forest, steep ravines, and hidden caves, seemed to have consumed them whole. Rumors swirled among the locals. Some whispered of bear attacks, others of foul play, while few spoke of older, stranger tales, legends of the mountains taking those who ventured too deep. Lily's sketchbook, which she carried everywhere, was never found, nor was Daniel's satellite phone, leaving investigators with nothing but questions. The media frenzy painted Daniel as a devoted father, a man still grieving his wife's death 3 years prior, and Lily as a precocious artist whose drawings had won local contests. Flyers with their faces plastered every visitor center, but as winter set in, the search scaled back and hope faded. The Harpers became another unsolved mystery, their story etched into the Smokies' lore, a cautionary tale whispered around campfires. For those who knew them, the loss was a wound that refused to heal. Daniel's sister, Clara, refused to believe they were gone, spending her savings on private investigators who chased dead ends. The park rangers, hardened by years of seeing hikers lost to the wild, couldn't shake the unease of his case. Something about it felt wrong, as if the mountains were hiding a truth just out of reach. 5 years passed, and the world moved on, but the Smokies held their secret tightly, waiting for the day it would be uncovered. Vanished in Smokies. The years of absence. The 5 years following Daniel and Lily Harper's disappearance in the Great Smoky Mountains passed like a slow, relentless fog, cloaking the lives of those left behind in uncertainty and grief. Clara Harper, Daniel's older sister, became the torchbearer of their memory, her life consumed by the search for answers. A high school teacher in Knoxville, Clara took a leave of absence that stretched into years. Her savings dwindled by hiring private investigators who trekked the Smokies trails, interviewed locals, and even consulted psychics, all to no avail. She plastered missing posters across Tennessee and North Carolina, their edges curling in the rain, Daniel's steady gaze and Lily's gap-toothed smile fading under the elements. Clara's apartment became a shrine to the case. Maps of the Smokies pinned to the walls, marked with red XS where search teams had scoured, and a box of Lily's old drawings, each one a painful reminder of her niece's unfulfilled promise. The media, once ravenous, moved on to newer tragedies, but Clara couldn't. She haunted online forums where amateur sleuths dissected the case, proposing theories ranging from abduction to supernatural vanishings tied to Cherokee legends of spirits in the mountains. One theory, posted anonymously on a subreddit dedicated to missing persons, suggested Daniel had staged their disappearance to escape debts, but Clara dismissed it. Her brother had no debts, only a modest savings and a fierce love for Lily. The Smokies themselves seemed to mock the search efforts, their vastness swallowing every clue. Rangers like Tom Bradley, who led the initial search, retired with the Harper case as an unshakable regret, haunted by the memory of finding nothing, not a scrap of clothing, not a footprint, not even a candy wrapper from Lily's favorite snacks. The park's 6,000 miles of streams and countless crevices made it a labyrinth where even the most skilled trackers could lose their way. Volunteers who joined the early searches drifted away, their enthusiasm eroded by the lack of progress, though a few diehards returned each October to retrace the Harpers' planned route to Gregory Bald, hoping for a miracle. Meanwhile, the town of Gatlinburg, a gateway to the Smokies, buzzed with tourists oblivious to the tragedy, their chatter about bears and waterfalls a stark contrast to the locals' hushed references to that missing father and daughter. Clara's persistence drew both admiration and pity. Some called her obsessed, others a hero, but she cared little for opinions, driven by a gut feeling that Daniel and Lily were still out there, somehow. She organized annual vigils at Cades Cove, where candlelight flickered against the autumn chill, and she spoke to anyone who'd listen, hikers, rangers, even psychics claiming visions of a crevice hiding a secret. One such psychic, a wiry woman named Marjorie, claimed to see a leather-bound book wedged in stone, a vision Clara clung to despite her skepticism. The Smokies ecosystem continued its indifferent cycle. Bears roamed, wildflowers bloomed, and storms carved new paths through the forest, while the Harpers' absence left a void in the community. Clara's only ally was Ethan Caldwell, a former park ranger turned private investigator, who took on her case pro bono after meeting her at a vigil. Ethan, a grizzled man in his 50s with a limp from a climbing accident, had his own reasons for staying invested. He'd lost a brother to the Smokies decades earlier, a hiker who vanished without a trace. Together, they combed through old ranger logs, interviewed witnesses who'd seen Daniel and Lily at the trailhead, and even explored fringe theories about hidden caves used by moonshiners or reclusive hermits. The years wore on, and Clara's hope frayed but never broke, sustained by small discoveries. A hiker's report of a child's laughter heard near Klingman's Dome, a torn scrap of fabric that didn't match any known search party gear. By 2025, the case had faded into obscurity for most, a footnote in Smokies history, but for Clara and Ethan, it was a fire that refused to die. They didn't know that the mountains were about to yield a clue, one that would shatter their theories and reignite the mystery in ways they couldn't imagine. Vanished in Smokies. The discovery. In the fall of 2025, the Great Smoky Mountains were ablaze with crimson and gold, drawing hikers from across the country to witness the season's peak. Among them were Sarah Nguyen and Javier Torres, a pair of experienced backpackers from Asheville, who set out on a lesser-known trail near Spence Field, a rugged stretch of the Appalachian Trail not far from where Daniel and Lily Harper had vanished 5 years earlier. The couple, both in their late 20s, were chasing a rare solitude away from the crowded tourist paths, equipped with topographic maps, a drone for aerial photos, and a shared passion for uncovering hidden gems in the wilderness. On their second day, as they navigated a steep, rocky descent toward Thunderhead Mountain, Javier noticed an irregularity in the terrain, a narrow crevice in a granite outcrop, partially obscured by moss and fallen leaves. Curious, he knelt to investigate, his flashlight catching a glint of something unnatural wedged deep within the stone. With Sarah's help, they carefully extracted a weathered, leather-bound sketchbook, its pages warped by moisture but intact, the name Lily Harper scrawled in childish handwriting on the inside cover. The discovery sent a jolt through them. They'd heard the Harper story, a cautionary tale told in hiking circles, and this find felt like unearthing a relic from a ghost story. The sketchbook was filled with drawings, vivid sketches of mountains, trees, and a series of cryptic, almost frantic pencil strokes depicting what looked like a cave entrance and a figure in shadow. One page, torn at the edges, bore a single sentence in Lily's hand. "Daddy says we're safe here, but I'm scared." Sarah and Javier, shaken but methodical, marked the crevice's location with GPS coordinates and contacted park rangers, who arrived within hours, their faces grim with recognition. The sketchbook was airlifted to the park's headquarters in Gatlinburg, where it became the catalyst for a renewed investigation. Clara Harper, now 42 and worn thin by years of searching, was summoned by Ranger Tom Bradley, now a consultant despite his retirement. When Clara held the sketchbook, tears streamed down her face. It was unmistakably Lily's, the same one she'd clutched during their last family picnic. The discovery exploded across local news, reigniting public interest and drawing reporters to the Smokies. The sketchbook's contents were puzzling. Lily's drawings showed not just landscapes but symbols, like a spiral with jagged lines radiating outward, and a map-like sketch pointing to a spot labeled the Hollow. Experts were called in. A forensic analyst confirmed the book had been exposed to the elements for years, its leather cover preserving the pages, while a graphologist studied Lily's handwriting for signs of distress. Clara and Ethan Caldwell, the private investigator, pored over the sketches, convinced they held clues to the Harpers' fate. The sentence about Daniel saying they were safe suggested they'd survived at least briefly after vanishing, but the mention of fear hinted at danger. The crevice, too narrow for an adult to enter, raised questions. How had the sketchbook ended up there? Had Lily hidden it, or had someone else? Search teams descended on Spence Field, equipped with drones, ground-penetrating radar, and caving experts to explore nearby fissures. Ethan theorized the Harpers had taken shelter in a cave, perhaps fleeing a storm or a threat, but the Smokies' labyrinthine geology made pinpointing such a location daunting. Locals revived old stories of hidden caves used by moonshiners or Civil War deserters, while online forums buzzed with speculation about cults or supernatural forces. Clara, though hopeful, was tormented by the sketchbook's implications. Why was Lily scared, and what had Daniel meant by safe? The investigation uncovered no new physical evidence, but the sketchbook symbols intrigued a folklore professor from the University of Tennessee, who linked the spiral to Cherokee myths about a spirit circle, a place where the lost were said to wander. Sarah and Javier, hailed as heroes, stayed in Gatlinburg to assist, haunted by the weight of their find. For Clara, the sketchbook was both a lifeline and a torment, pulling her closer to answers, yet deepening the mystery of what had happened to her brother and niece in the unforgiving Smokies. Vanished in Smokies. The deepening mystery. The discovery of Lily Harper's sketchbook in a remote crevice near Spence Field sent shockwaves through the Great Smoky Mountains community, rekindling a case that had long gone cold. Clara Harper, now a shadow of her former self, clung to the sketchbook as a tangible link to her brother Daniel and niece Lily, who vanished 5 years prior in 2020. The leather-bound book, its pages filled with Lily's haunting drawings and a single chilling sentence, "Daddy says we're safe here, but I'm scared," became the focal point of a renewed investigation, drawing an eclectic team of rangers, detectives, and specialists to the Smokies. Clara, alongside Ethan Caldwell, the former ranger turned private investigator, spent sleepless nights analyzing the sketches, particularly the cryptic spiral symbol and the map-like drawing labeled the Hollow. The investigation, led by a tenacious new ranger, Mia Rodriguez, shifted focus to the rugged terrain around Thunderhead Mountain, where the sketchbook was found. Mia, a seasoned tracker with a reputation for solving impossible cases, assembled a task force that included geologists, caving experts, and a Cherokee cultural consultant named Lena Tulagi, who recognized the spiral as a symbol from tribal lore tied to a mythical place where the living and the dead converged. The team scoured the area with advanced tools, drones equipped with thermal imaging, LiDAR to map hidden caves, and even sent dogs trained to detect human remains years after death. Clara, though not an official member, was a constant presence, her determination both inspiring and heartbreaking to the team. She carried a worn photo of Daniel and Lily, taken weeks before their disappearance, their smiles a stark contrast to the grim search. The sketchbook's contents raised more questions than answers. Lily's drawings depicted a cave entrance, jagged rocks, and a shadowy figure that seemed to loom over a stick figure Lily, while the spiral appeared repeatedly, sometimes surrounded by what looked like eyes. Forensic analysts confirmed the book had been exposed to moisture and cold, suggesting it had been in the crevice for years, but the leather cover had preserved it remarkably well. The sentence in Lily's handwriting suggested they had survived at least briefly after vanishing, but the fear in her words gnawed at Clara. Had they been hiding from something or someone? Ethan, with his deep knowledge of the Smokies, proposed they had sought refuge in an unmapped cave, possibly during a sudden storm, a common peril in the mountains. Yet the crevice where the sketchbook was found was too narrow for an adult, leading to theories that Lily had deliberately hidden it, perhaps as a breadcrumb for rescuers. The investigation uncovered tantalizing but inconclusive clues. A caver found a rusted knife near the crevice, its handle engraved with DH, matching Daniel's initials, but it was too weathered to yield fingerprints. A drone captured faint anomalies in the terrain, suggesting underground voids, but excavations revealed only empty limestone pockets. Lena Tulagi shared stories of a hidden valley, known to her ancestors as the Hollow, rumored to be a place where people could disappear into the earth, guarded by spirits. While Mia dismissed supernatural explanations, she couldn't ignore the cultural weight of the spiral symbol, which appeared in petroglyphs near Klingman's dome. Public interest surged, with true crime podcasters and amateur sleuths descending on Gatlinburg, some claiming the Harpers had stumbled into a smuggling operation or a reclusive hermit's territory. Clara faced a barrage of media, her grief laid bare as she pleaded for information, her voice cracking on national TV. Ethan, meanwhile, chased a lead from a retired moonshiner who claimed to have seen smoke rising from a remote ridge in 2020, near the time of the disappearance, but the site yielded only charred wood from an old campfire. The emotional toll on Clara was immense. She oscillated between hope and despair, haunted by Lily's fearful words and the possibility that Daniel had been unable to protect her. The team's efforts were hampered by the Smokies' unforgiving terrain, dense rhododendron thickets, sudden cliffs, and streams that erased tracks. A breakthrough came when a volunteer found a single bead, turquoise and hand-carved, near a streambed a mile from the crevice. Clara recognized it as part of a bracelet Lily wore, a gift from her late mother. This find redirected the search to a network of streams feeding into the little river, but weeks of exploration found no further trace. As winter loomed, threatening to halt the search, Clara and Ethan grew desperate, convinced the answer lay in the hollow, depicted in Lily's sketch. They began to suspect the Harpers had encountered something, or someone, that forced them into hiding, and the sketchbook was a message, a plea for rescue that had gone unanswered for 5 years. The mountains, vast and silent, held their secret tightly, but the discovery of the bead and the knife fueled a fragile hope that the truth was close, waiting to be uncovered in the Smokies' hidden depths. Vanished in Smokies, the truth revealed. As winter's chill descended on the Great Smoky Mountains in late 2025, the search for Daniel and Lily Harper reached a fevered pitch, fueled by the discovery of Lily's sketchbook, a rusted knife with Daniel's initials, and a turquoise bead from Lily's bracelet. Clara Harper, now gaunt from years of relentless searching, and Ethan Caldwell, her steadfast ally, stood at the edge of a frozen stream near the little river, where the bead had been found, their breath visible in the crisp air. Ranger Mia Rodriguez's task force, bolstered by caving experts and Cherokee consultant Lena Tulagi, zeroed in on a remote valley known to locals as the Hollow, a place hinted at in Lily's cryptic sketch. The valley, tucked beneath Thunderhead Mountain shadow, was a tangle of limestone cliffs and hidden sinkholes, its entrance so obscured by overgrowth that even seasoned hikers rarely ventured there. Lena's stories of the Cherokee Spirit Circle and a sacred hollow where the lost were said to linger weighed heavily on Clara, who, despite her skepticism, felt an eerie pull to the place. The team deployed LiDAR and ground-penetrating radar, revealing a network of unmapped caves beneath the valley, one of which matched the jagged entrance in Lily's drawing. A caving team, led by a wiry spelunker named Marcus Tate, descended into the largest cavern, a claustrophobic maze of dripping stalactites and echoing chambers. After hours of navigating tight passages, Marcus's flashlight caught a glint, another bead, identical to Lily's, wedged in a crack. The discovery electrified the team, and Clara, though barred from the dangerous descent, waited above, clutching Lily's sketchbook, her fingers tracing the spiral symbol that seemed to pulse with meaning. Deep in the cave, the team found more. A tattered backpack, its contents spilling out, Daniel's satellite phone, its battery long dead, and a torn map with a hollow circled in red. The cave showed signs of human presence, charred wood from a small fire, a child's shoe too worn to confirm as Lily's, and scratches on the walls that resembled the spiral from her sketches. The findings suggested the Harpers had survived for some time, perhaps weeks, in the cave, but why they'd stayed and what had happened remained elusive. Clara's hope surged, but so did her dread. The cave felt like a tomb, its silence mocking her prayers. Ethan, piecing together the clues, theorized that Daniel, an experienced hiker, had led Lily to the cave to escape a sudden threat, a storm, a predator, or something human. The knife, found near the crevice, hinted at a struggle, its blade nicked as if used in desperation. Lena suggested the spiral was a protective symbol, perhaps drawn by Lily under Daniel's guidance, rooted in stories he'd heard growing up near Cherokee lands. A breakthrough came when Marcus's team found a second chamber, its entrance collapsed but recently disturbed, revealing a shallow grave. The team held its breath as forensic experts worked, unearthing 2 sets of remains, one adult, one child, their identities later confirmed through dental records as Daniel and Lily Harper. Clara collapsed when Mia delivered the news, the weight of 5 years crashing down. The coroner's report revealed a grim truth. Daniel had died of a head wound, likely from a fall, while Lily's cause of death was hypothermia, suggesting she'd survived him briefly, alone in the cave. The sketchbook, hidden in the crevice above, was likely her final act, a desperate message to the world. The investigation concluded that a violent storm in October 2020 had driven the Harpers off the trail, forcing them to seek shelter in the cave. Daniel, injured in a fall, couldn't climb out, and Lily, too small to navigate the crevice alone, stayed with him, her fear captured in her final words. The spiral, Lena explained, was Lily's attempt to invoke protection, a child's hope against the dark. Clara, devastated yet relieved to have answers, buried her brother and niece in a quiet Knoxville cemetery, their headstones adorned with a carved spiral in Lily's honor. The Smokies, vast and indifferent, had claimed them, but the sketchbook's discovery gave Clara closure, a testament to Lily's courage. The case closed, but the mountain's secrets lingered, whispering through the fog to those who dared listen. Vanished in Smokies, the echoes of loss. The confirmation of Daniel and Lily Harper's deaths in a hidden cave beneath the Great Smoky Mountains in late 2025 brought a bittersweet end to a mystery that had haunted the region for half a decade. Clara Harper, whose life had been consumed by the search for her brother and niece, stood at their graves in a quiet Knoxville cemetery, the spiral symbol from Lily's sketchbook etched into their headstones, a silent tribute to a child's courage and a father's love. The Smokies, with their ancient ridges and whispering forests, had finally yielded their secret, but the truth left Clara grappling with a grief both resolved and raw. She returned to her teaching job, her classroom a refuge where she could pour her energy into her students, though her eyes often drifted to the window, toward the distant peaks that had claimed her family. The sketchbook, now preserved in a Knoxville museum exhibit on the Harper's case, became a pilgrimage site for locals and hikers, its pages displayed under glass, Lily's drawings a haunting blend of innocence and dread. Ethan Caldwell, the former ranger who had stood by Clara through years of searching, retired from private investigation, his limp more pronounced as he took up a quiet life guiding historical tours in Gatlinburg. He often spoke of the Harpers, using their story to caution hikers about the mountain's dangers, though he never mentioned the unease that still gripped him, the feeling that the Smokies held more secrets than they'd revealed. Ranger Mia Rodriguez, hailed for leading the investigation that found the Harpers, earned a promotion but privately struggled with the case's toll. The image of Lily's tiny shoe in the cave haunted her dreams. The Cherokee consultant, Lena Tsalagi, continued to share stories of the Spirit Circle, advocating for greater respect for the Smokies' sacred sites, her voice gaining traction among park officials who began limiting access to sensitive areas like the Hollow. The discovery reshaped the community. Gatlinburg's tourism dipped briefly as sensationalized media painted the Smokies as a place of peril, but it rebounded as true crime enthusiasts flocked to retrace the Harpers' path. Sarah Nguyen and Javier Torres, the hikers who found the sketchbook, became reluctant celebrities, their story told in a best-selling book that donated proceeds to search and rescue programs. Clara, though invited to contribute, declined, preferring to mourn privately. She found solace in small acts, planting wildflowers like those Lily loved, visiting the cemetery weekly, and mentoring a student who reminded her of her niece's artistic spark. The knife with Daniel's initials, the turquoise beads, and the sketchbook's cryptic symbols fueled ongoing debates in online forums, with some claiming the Harpers had encountered a human threat, a hermit or smuggler, though no evidence supported this. Others clung to Lena's myths, whispering of spirits that lured the lost. Clara rejected such theories, finding comfort in the coroner's report. Daniel's head wound from a fall, Lily's hypothermia, a tragic but natural end in a storm's chaos. Yet, late at night, she'd study Lily's final drawing, the shadowy figure and the spiral, wondering if her niece had seen something more. The Smokies themselves seemed to watch, their fog-laden peaks indifferent to human sorrow. Ethan, on his tours, pointed out the valley where the Harpers were found, now off-limits to hikers, its entrance marked by a simple plaque honoring Daniel and Lily. The case left a legacy: stricter park regulations, better tracking technology for hikers, and a renewed appreciation for the mountain's beauty and danger. For Clara, healing came slowly, in moments of connection, with students, with Ethan, with the memory of Lily's laughter. The sketchbook, Wedged in that crevice for 5 years had been Lily's voice, a beacon that led to the truth. As spring returned to the Smokies, Clara hiked to Gregory Bald, where Daniel and Lily had planned to watch the sunset. She scattered wildflower seeds, whispered their names, and felt the mountain's silence, not as a threat, but as a vast, eternal embrace, holding her family close. Vanished in Smokies, the unsettled shadows. The spring of 2026 brought a deceptive calm to the Great Smoky Mountains, where the wildflowers bloomed in vibrant defiance of the tragedy that had unfolded in the hollow beneath Thunderhead Mountain. Clara Harper, now slowly rebuilding her life after the discovery of her brother Daniel and niece Lily's remains, thought she had found closure, her grief tempered by the ritual of scattering seeds at Gregory Bald and visiting their graves. But the Smokies, with their ancient secrets, were not done with her. A new ripple in the Harper case emerged when a graduate student named Aisha Patel, studying Appalachian folklore at the University of Tennessee, stumbled upon a reference in a 19th-century journal at a Cherokee archive. The journal, penned by a missionary who lived among the Cherokee, described a circle of stone in a hidden valley where people vanished, marked by a spiral symbol etched into rock, a symbol eerily similar to the one in Lily's sketchbook. Aisha, intrigued by the Harper case after visiting the Knoxville Museum exhibit, contacted Clara with a theory. The hollow wasn't just a cave, but a place of cultural and perhaps supernatural significance, tied to stories of a portal where the lost were drawn. Clara, wary of reopening old wounds, agreed to meet Aisha, joined by Ethan Caldwell, whose curiosity about the Smokies' mysteries never waned. The trio, with Ranger Mia Rodriguez's reluctant approval, ventured to the now-restricted hollow, guided by Aisha's translations of the journal, which hinted at a specific cave entrance marked by a spiral. The valley, still cordoned off to hikers, felt heavier than before, its air thick with an unnameable tension. Using Aisha's coordinates, they found a slab of limestone deep in the hollow, its surface faintly carved with a spiral, weathered but unmistakable. Beneath it, a narrow passage led to a chamber the original search team had missed, its entrance hidden by a rockfall. Inside, they found artifacts that chilled them. A rusted tin box containing a locket with a photo of Daniel's late wife, Sarah, and a handwritten note in Daniel's precise script, dated 3 days after their disappearance in October 2020. The note read, "We're trapped. Storm blocked the way out. Lily's safe but weakening. If you find this, tell Clara I tried." The discovery shattered Clara's fragile peace, confirming Daniel had fought to protect Lily until the end, but it also raised new questions. Why hadn't this chamber been found? And how had the sketchbook ended up in a crevice a mile away? Aisha's research suggested the spiral marked a place of crossing, where Cherokee lore claimed the veil between worlds was thin, a notion Ethan dismissed as folklore but Mia quietly considered, her rational mind warring with the cave's oppressive atmosphere. Forensic teams were called back, uncovering more. A second knife, not Daniel's, its blade stained with traces of blood too degraded for DNA analysis, and a scrap of cloth that didn't match the Harper's gear. The findings sparked a new investigation, with Mia suspecting a third party had been in the hollow, a poacher, perhaps, or someone fleeing the law, as the Smokies had long been a hideout for outcasts. Clara, torn between anguish and determination, pushed for answers, her grief reignited by the locket, a keepsake Daniel had carried since Sarah's death. Aisha's journal led them to interview elders in the Cherokee community, one of whom, an old woman named Tallulah, recalled her grandfather's warnings about the hollow, a place where the mountains take what they want. She spoke of a man seen in the area in 2020, a drifter with no name, who vanished soon after. The investigation stalled as winter returned, the smoky snows bearing leads, but Clara and Ethan began to piece together a theory. Daniel and Lily, caught in a storm, had stumbled into the hollow, where they encountered someone, or something, that led to their entrapment. The sketchbook, perhaps thrown into the crevice by Lily in a final act of hope, had been their only message to the world. The bloodied knife hinted at a confrontation, but with whom or what remained unclear. Aisha published her findings, sparking a media frenzy that painted the Smokies as a place of mystery, drawing adventurers and ghost hunters despite park restrictions. Clara, though exhausted, felt a duty to protect Daniel and Lily's memory, speaking at community forums to advocate for safer hiking protocols. The hollow, now a guarded site, became a place of pilgrimage for those drawn to its lore, its spiral symbol a haunting reminder of the mountain's power. For Clara, The new discoveries offered no true closure, only a deeper connection to her lost family, their story forever entwined with the Smokies' untamed heart. Vanished in Smokies, the Drifter's Trail. The discovery of the hidden chamber in the hollow, with its chilling artifacts, Daniel Harper's locket, a bloodstained knife, and a note confirming his desperate final days, cast a long shadow over the Great Smoky Mountains in the winter of 2026. Clara Harper, who had buried her brother and niece only months earlier, found herself pulled back into the mystery she thought was resolved, her heart torn between closure and the nagging sense that the Smokies still hid a darker truth. The bloodied knife, unrelated to Daniel, and the elder Tallulah's tale of a nameless drifter seen near the hollow in 2020 ignited a new thread in the investigation, one that Ranger Mia Rodriguez pursued with a dogged intensity, sensing the case was far from closed. Aisha Patel, the graduate student whose research into Cherokee folklore had uncovered the Circle of Stone, became an unlikely linchpin, her translations of old journals pointing to a network of caves used by outcasts and fugitives since the Civil War. The knife, analyzed by forensics, yielded no DNA, but bore a distinctive notch pattern, suggesting it was hand-forged, possibly by someone living off the grid. Mia's team, with Ethan Caldwell's reluctant return to the field, focused on tracking this drifter, a figure who seemed to haunt the margins of the Harper case like a specter. Clara, though weary, joined the effort, driven by the note's words, "Tell Clara I tried," and a growing suspicion that Daniel's death involved more than a storm and a fall. The team's search led to a reclusive community of survivalists living deep in the Smokies, known to rangers but rarely disturbed, their camps hidden in ravines beyond park boundaries. A tip from a local hunter pointed to a man known only as Creek, a transient who'd bartered with locals in 2020, trading pelts for supplies and speaking of a sacred circle he guarded. Mia and Ethan, guided by Aisha's maps, trekked to a remote ridge where Creek was last seen, finding an abandoned lean-to littered with animal bones and a crude spiral carved into a tree. The site yielded a breakthrough. A tattered journal, its pages filled with rambling entries about protecting the hollow and keeping the lost safe. The handwriting didn't match Daniel's, but one entry mentioned a man and girl who didn't belong, dated days after the Harpers' disappearance. Clara, reading the journal under the glow of a campfire, felt a chill. Had this Creek encountered Daniel and Lily, and was he friend or foe? The team's search intensified, with drones sweeping the ridges and cavers exploring adjacent tunnels, one of which revealed a stash of old tools, including a forge that could have crafted the knife. Aisha's research deepened, uncovering references to a Cherokee outcast who, centuries ago, guarded the hollow, believing it a gateway to the spirit world, a role possibly adopted by modern drifters like Creek. The investigation drew national attention, with podcasters and journalists speculating about a Humid serial killer, though Mia cautioned against sensationalism, noting no evidence tied Creek directly to murder. Clara, however, couldn't shake the image of Lily's sketch, the shadowy figure looming over her stick-figure self. Was it Creek, or something else? A breakthrough came when a retired ranger recalled seeing a man matching Creek's description near Cades Cove in 2020, carrying a child's shoe, but he'd vanished before questioning. The team tracked Creek's trail to a derelict cabin near the Little River, its walls scrawled with spirals and littered with artifacts, beads like lilies, a rusted canteen, and a faded photo of a woman resembling Daniel's late wife, Sarah. The cabin suggested Creek had been watching the Harpers, perhaps drawn by Daniel's resemblance to someone from his past. Mia theorized Creek, unhinged but not necessarily malicious, had tried to save the Harpers by leading them to the hollow, only for the storm to trap them. The blood on the knife, she posited, could have been from a defensive act, Daniel protecting Lily from an unstable stranger. Clara, grappling with this, visited Tallulah again, who shared a final story. The hollow's guardian was cursed to wander, unable to leave until the mountains released him. As spring approached, Creek remained elusive, a ghost in the Smokies, but the cabin's contents were enough to close the case officially, ruling the Harpers' deaths a tragic accident complicated by an encounter with an unstable drifter. Clara, though unsatisfied, found a strange peace in the ambiguity, choosing to honor Daniel and Lily by funding a scholarship for young artists, inspired by Lily's sketches. The Smokies, vast and enigmatic, kept Creek's fate a secret, their peaks whispering of mysteries that might never be fully unraveled. Vanished in Smokies, the final reckoning. The spring of 2027 arrived in the Great Smoky Mountains with a deceptive serenity, the valleys blooming with wildflowers that masked the unresolved shadows of the Harper case. Clara Harper, now in her mid-40s, had channeled her grief into a scholarship fund for young artists in Lily's name, yet the discovery of the Drifter Creek's cabin, with its haunting artifacts, beads, a canteen, and a photo resembling Daniel's late wife, kept her tethered to the mystery. The bloodstained knife and Creek's journal, with its cryptic references to protecting the hollow and a man and girl, suggested a complex truth about Daniel and Lily's final days in 2020, one that Ranger Mia Rodriguez refused to let fade into the Smokies lore. Aisha Patel, the folklore scholar, had become a fixture in the investigation, her research into the Cherokee Circle of Stone, pointing to a deeper history of disappearances in the hollow, each marked by the spiral symbol that haunted Lily's sketchbook. Ethan Caldwell, though weary from years of chasing ghosts, joined Mia, Clara, and Aisha in a final push to find Creek, the elusive drifter who seemed to hold the key to the Harper's fate. A new lead emerged when a hiker, exploring an off-limits trail near the Little River, reported a fleeting sighting of a gaunt man with wild eyes, carving spirals into a tree. Mia's team, equipped with thermal drones and tracking dogs, descended on the area, guided by Aisha's latest find, a 1920s surveyor's map that marked the hollow as a place of no return, used by outcasts to evade authorities. The map pinpointed a cluster of caves beyond the chamber where Daniel and Lily's remains were found, one rumored to be a shrine of sorts, guarded by those who believed the hollow was sacred. Clara, though hesitant to hope again, felt a pull to confront this final piece of the puzzle, her dreams plagued by Lily's sketch of the shadowy figure. The team's trek to the cave was grueling, navigating sheer cliffs and swollen streams, but their persistence paid off when they found a hidden entrance, its mouth framed by a faint spiral etched in moss-covered stone. Inside, the air was heavy, the walls scrawled with dozens of spirals, some fresh, others centuries old, suggesting a lineage of guardians like Creek. The cave held a makeshift altar, stones arranged in a circle, adorned with beads, feathers, and a knife matching the one from the hollow, its blade clean but notched identically. At the altar center was a bundle of papers, yellowed and brittle, written in a shaky hand that matched Creek's journal. The entries, dated up to 2026, spoke of guilt and duty. I led them to safety, but the mountain kept them. The girl's book was her soul, hidden to guide the seekers. Clara's heart raced. This confirmed Creek had interacted with Lily, perhaps taking her sketchbook to the Crevice as a signal. The papers mentioned a storm that trapped the Harpers and Creek's attempt to save them, only for Daniel to lash out, fearing for Lily, resulting in a struggle that left blood on the knife. Creek, it seemed, had fled, believing himself cursed to guard the hollow forever. The team's search for Creek culminated when a dog led them to a frail figure hiding in a nearby ravine. Creek himself, now in his 60s, his face etched with years of isolation. Under questioning, he spoke in riddles, claiming the hollow chose who stayed and who left, and that he'd tried to protect the Harpers from its pull, only to fail. His story aligned with the evidence. Daniel's head wound from a fall, Lily's hypothermia, and the knife's blood from a defensive scuffle, not murder. Creek, unhinged but not a killer, had lived in torment, carving spirals to appease the mountain's spirits. Mia, satisfied with the explanation, closed the case, ruling the Harpers' deaths a tragic accident complicated by Creek's misguided intervention. Clara, face to face with the man who'd last seen her family, felt a mix of rage and pity, but his broken demeanor offered no solace. Aisha's work led to the Hollow's designation as a protected cultural site, its caves sealed to preserve their history. Clara returned to Knoxville, the scholarship fund her legacy, while Ethan retired fully, his tours now ending with a nod to the Hollow's mystery. The Smokies, vast and eternal, absorbed the story, their peaks standing sentinel over secrets that Creek's confession only partially unveiled, leaving Clara to find peace in the enduring love of her brother and niece, their memory woven into the mountain's timeless tapestry. Vanished in Smokies, the Hollow's legacy. The summer of 2027 bathed the Great Smoky Mountains in a golden haze, but for Clara Harper, the warmth could not dispel the chill of the unresolved questions lingering from her brother Daniel and niece Lily's tragic end in the hollow. The confrontation with Creek, the drifter who had tried to save the Harpers only to witness their demise, had closed the official case, but Clara felt the Smokies still whispered secrets through their fog-laden peaks. Aisha Patel, the folklore scholar whose research had unraveled the hollow's ancient significance, uncovered a new lead in a forgotten archive, a 1930s ethnographer's account of a Cherokee ritual tied to the Circle of Stone, describing it as a place where offerings were left to appease spirits guarding a portal to the lost. The spiral symbol, etched in Lily's sketchbook and found throughout the hollow's caves, was set to mark those chosen by the mountains, a concept that haunted Clara as she grappled with why her family had been drawn there. Ranger Mia Rodriguez, now a regional supervisor, reopened an informal investigation after Aisha shared the account, sensing the hollow's history might explain other disappearances in the Smokies. Ethan Caldwell, though fully retired, agreed to consult, his connection to the Harpers too deep to sever. The team, joined by Aisha and a new volunteer, a young archaeologist named Lucas Gray, returned to the hollow, now a protected site but still a magnet for whispers of the supernatural. Lucas, armed with Aisha's translations, uncovered a hidden ledge above the altar cave, revealing a cache of artifacts, clay beads matching Lily's bracelet, a rusted compass engraved with initials not Daniel's, and a faded letter from 1947, written by a woman named Aloan, claiming her son had vanished in the hollow after carving a spiral to call the guardians. The letter hinted at a family curse, one that echoed Creek's ramblings about duty and protection. Clara, reading the letter under the hollow's dim light, felt a jolt. Aloan's maiden name was Harper, a distant relative Daniel had never mentioned. The revelation prompted Clara to dig into her family history, uncovering a lineage tied to early Smoky settlers, some of whom were rumored to have served as keepers of the hollow, a role passed down through generations. Aisha's research confirmed this, linking the Harpers to Cherokee intermediaries who guarded sacred sites. The compass, traced to a 1940s hiker who vanished, suggested the hollow had claimed others, each marked by the spiral. Mia's team used ground-penetrating radar to map more caves, finding faint traces of human activity, bone fragments, too old for DNA, and more spirals carved into limestone. Lucas theorized the hollow was a ritual site, not a portal but a place where people sought refuge or redemption, only to be trapped by its treacherous geography. Clara, wrestling with the idea that her family's fate was tied to an ancient legacy, visited Tallulah, the Cherokee elder, who revealed that the Harpers' ancestors had once vowed to protect the hollow, a vow broken when modernity drew them away. Creek, it seemed, had taken up this role, his encounter with Daniel and Lily a tragic clash of misunderstood duties. The bloodied knife, Clara now believed, was from Daniel defending Lily against Creek's erratic behavior, not malice. A final clue emerged when Lucas found a sealed crevice near the altar, containing a child's drawing, not Lily's, but eerily similar, dated 1947, signed by Aloan's son. The drawing depicted a spiral and a figure leading a child into darkness, mirroring Lily's sketch. This suggested a pattern. The hollow drew those connected to its keepers, their fates sealed by storms or mishaps. Clara, overwhelmed, organized a memorial in the hollow, now a restricted cultural site, where she and Aisha placed a stone plaque honoring Daniel, Lily, and others lost to the mountains. The ceremony, attended by Mia, Ethan, and local Cherokee leaders, was a quiet reckoning, acknowledging the Smokies' power to both shelter and claim. Clara, finding solace in her family's ancient tie to the land, expanded Lily's scholarship to include Cherokee youth, weaving their heritage into her healing. Ethan shared the story on his final tour, his voice steady as he described the hollow's legacy, not as a curse, but as a reminder of the mountain's sacred weight. Mia, closing her file, ensured the hollow's caves remained sealed, preserving their secrets. The Smokies, with their timeless ridges, stood silent, their spirals a testament to those who wandered too close to their heart, leaving Clara to carry her family's story forward, forever bound to the land that both took and gave her purpose.